All right, good afternoon. I'm 14 First Alert meteorologist Arden Gregory.
And I'm meteorologist Michael Fecca.
Yeah, and today is still a First Alert weather day, but we do have some good news. It does seem like the storms are, for the most part, kind of weakening some as they move into the tri-state, so we don't have as great of a risk of severe storms through the rest of the day as we did earlier. But there is still that possibility of an isolated strong to severe storm as we go through the rest of the day today, especially with the wind. This is a look at the individual severe risks.
Yeah, you can see we're sitting at a level 1 there for maybe a spin of tornado, hail, and flooding, but the primary concern at this point with those storms looking like they're weakening is going to be that potential for maybe an isolated damaging wind gust at this point.
Yeah, if you've stepped outside today, you know it's already very windy, so as those storms move through, the wind could pick up a little more and possibly reach a point that could be damaging. Now, we've been tracking these storms all day long. We did have some severe storms roll through this morning. That was the first round. We were always expecting 2 rounds of storms today, so this has not been a surprise. Those storms have since pushed well off to the northeast. They're out in Ohio now, and now we're tracking this line of storms moving through along a cold front, kind of sliding from west to east through the tri-state. We did have a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings earlier today in Wayne, Edwards, and Wabash counties as that line first moved through, but they've now let those warnings expire because things seem to be weakening some.
Yeah, and we can tell that they're weakening here not only just because we're not seeing a whole lot of those reds and oranges pop up on the radar, but there really hasn't been a whole lot of lightning activity, at least with the thunderstorms that are projected to move in here from the west. Now, that's not to say that they don't catch a little bit of speed here as we go through the rest of this afternoon, which is why we'll stay on alert for that potential of an isolated damaging wind gust and a severe thunderstorm warning. But as of right now, if this weakening trend keeps going, I think we should be okay through the rest of this afternoon.
Yeah, like you said, I wouldn't rule it out. This is a fairly strong cold front. You're definitely going to feel when it goes through. But after those storms this morning, it may be that the atmosphere is just a little too worked over. We may have already used up our opportunity for severe weather today with those storms this morning. But this line of storms, kind of a broken line, will continue to move from west to east through the tri-state as we go through this afternoon. Notice, though, even this model shows that gradual weakening, and by about 5 o'clock tonight, it really shows very little of those oranges and yellows showing up there anymore as this rain just continues to weaken out. Then those showers will clear the tri-state completely. Probably by about 10 o'clock tonight, we're going to be dry. The clouds then move out overnight tonight, and tomorrow it's going to be sunny, but it's going to be a lot colder.
A lot chillier. You can see those wind barbs coming out of the northwest. That's indicating there's going to be more of a colder air mass kind of streaming in here from the northwest. So we'll cool down nicely for our Thursday, and then we may start to warm back up briefly here, headed towards the weekend before we're looking at another cold front moving through later on this weekend into Sunday.
Yeah, and when we get to the temperature map, you can already see that cold front effects in Illinois. You'll see that in just a moment. I do want to take a second, though, just to kind of walk through the thunderstorm threat for the rest of today. The Storm Prediction Center does still have most of the tri-state in this level 2 risk. So we were never expecting widespread severe weather today, and that is still the case now. We are not going to see widespread severe weather, but an isolated strong to severe storm is certainly possible. Now, one thing that could be confusing about the severe weather threat today is that we are essentially at the same categorical risk level as a huge part of the country. I mean, this stretches from New Jersey all the way down into Texas, but when we start looking at the individual threats, you start to realize that this one map really doesn't tell the whole story.
Right. We're looking at like maybe a greater risk for areas to our north and east for tornadoes there. You can see they're sitting at that 5% hatched risk across portions of Ohio, even eastern Kentucky, much of West Virginia, and into portions of southwestern Pennsylvania. And then the same thing here for the deep south there across Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi, sitting at that 5% hatched risk. However, here in the tri-state, we're only at that level 2 with no hatching there, but we're still all included within that level 2 slight categorical risk across the board.
And it's not just the tornado risk we see this disparity in either. You see it with the winds too. Again, those same areas to the northeast and then down across the deep south up to this 30% risk of seeing damaging winds, where the tri-state is sitting at this 15% risk. And even with hail, we still kind of see the same story where the greatest greatest risk of large hail today is to our northeast, kind of centered over Ohio and West Virginia there, where in the tri-state we're down at this 5% risk. So across the board, even though we're sitting at that level 2 risk, most of our threats are really very isolated. We might see isolated flooding, a little hail, or maybe even a brief tornado can't be ruled out, but the chances of all of those is really very low.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. And we think maybe that morning shower cluster that moved in is helping to work over the atmosphere a little bit. So maybe we didn't recharge enough as this cold front moves through. But again, like she said, there's still an isolated potential for each individual risk there, but they are not as great as those areas to our north and east and to our south.
Right. And if we were to see any severe weather as we go through the afternoon, and again, the chances of any severe storms at this point seems pretty slim, but if we were to get a severe thunderstorm warning, it would most likely be for damaging winds.
Right.
And some of that is because the winds are already so high. We mentioned before the impact of this cold front, including the change in our wind direction and this drop in our temperatures. Can you guess where the cold front is just based off of looking at this temperature map, folks?
I think we can. You can see where areas where that front is beginning to work through or has already worked through. They're down into the upper 40s, but across portions of western Kentucky here, you still see we're sitting in the lower 70s. Even here along the Ohio River in Evansville, Newburgh, we're all sitting in the lower 70s there. So that cold front likely lined up right along the Wabash River, and that's going to continue to work its way in from northwest to southeast.
So for those of us still in the 70s, be prepared. This is what's headed our way. So even if these aren't severe, you're still going to feel when that cold front moves through. Probably get a little rain, maybe even a thunderstorm, but we're also going to see this sharp change in our wind direction and then immediately this drop in the temperatures. It is going to cool off very quickly as we go through the rest of the day. And again, you can see that change in the wind direction starting to happen now. Winds still coming from the southwest in Evansville, Henderson, and on down into the rest of Kentucky. But then as you head farther northwest, Fairfield, Mount Carmel, Oakland City, Mount Vernon, starting to see those winds coming in from the northwest now, pulling that sharply colder air into the tri-state. And these are some pretty strong winds, too. I mean, these are sustained winds, by the way, and we're seeing a lot of numbers up over 20 miles an hour here. And when you look at the gusts so far today, we have seen a lot of gusts upwards of 30 or even 40 miles an hour. Evansville's maximum wind gust so far today is 47 miles an hour. So keep that in mind as we move forward. We are still under a wind advisory. It's going to expire soon, kind of as that cold front moves through, but we are still under a wind advisory till 4 o'clock.
Right, so we could still see gusts anywhere between 40 to 50 miles per hour, especially right out ahead of that front. That seems to be where the strongest wind gusts will be. And then once that front crosses, it'll still be a bit breezy out there, but it shouldn't be as gusty as it is right now.
Right. The main impact you're going to notice once the cold front moves through is that drop in our temperatures. Because like we said, it's going to cool down fast and it's going to get pretty cold out there tonight. I mean, yesterday we were 1 degree off from setting a new record. We got to 81 yesterday. The record was 82. And then look at tonight's low.
Yeah. Dropping down to nearly freezing, probably even below in a few spots, especially to our northwest. Now, it is going to stay on the cloudier side, it looks like, so that may help insulate some of those temperatures. But down into the 30s compared to 80s yesterday and 70s today, that is going to make it feel, like a whole different season. You know, we've been enjoying kind of a taste of early spring so far, and right as we come to the
things
end
have
of
started
winter,
to bloom,
and now we're going to get snapped back into reality quickly before we warm back up, and then maybe cooling back down again through the second half of the weekend. Yeah,
so I hope you haven't packed away your winter coats just yet, because we're definitely not done with them. In fact, the start to next week looks even colder. So by the end of the night tonight, we dip into those 30s. Still mostly cloudy tonight, as Michael mentioned, but those clouds move out very early in the day on Thursday. And really, tomorrow is going to be a fairly nice day. Lots of sunshine, not as windy, but it is going to be 20-25 degrees colder than it is today due to the passage of that cold front. Now, that cold snap doesn't last forever. We gradually start to warm up again as we go through the weekend, but then we've got another cold front.
Yeah, we've got another cold front. You can see that huge drop in our temperatures there on Sunday. So that front will likely move in here Sunday evening. That's going to drop temperatures by Monday morning down into the upper 20s possibly, and then we only warm back up into the upper 30s for our highs on Monday, and then back down possibly even into the upper teens to around 20 degrees, waking up early Tuesday morning, and then it looks like we'll start to gradually pop back up to near normal by the time we get into the middle of next week. So a little bit of a roller coaster here, very March-like as we go through the middle of the month. So keep that in mind. Like Arden said, we're not done with those winter jackets just yet.
Yeah, so after the past few days where it's been so warm, tomorrow's going to feel pretty chilly, but it's nothing compared to what we're going to have to start next week. Let's take a quick check-in on the comments here. See what everybody has to say. Good afternoon, Laura, Jeanette. Zach Seats asking, are the storms mostly going to be non-severe?
I think at this point in time, we're comfortable in saying
I think
that.
mostly,
Yes.
I would be safe to say. We may get an isolated severe storm, but most of them will not be severe.
Correct. Could be gusty, but maybe sub-severe wind gusts within those showers as they move through.
We do have one report of some damage. Carolyn says in Hobstadt, they just got a very high gust of wind come through and it tore the siding and some roof shingles off and even turned over some lawn furniture. Right. So some very strong, like we said, winds are the main threat here. So seeing some minor wind damage there in Hobstadt. Glad everybody's okay. And Jeff Miller out in Savah in Posey County said, temperature was 72, now 52.
Oh, okay. So that front's making some progress here.
And let's see. Yeah, Amber is kind of the similar story in Francisco. Big gust of wind and now temperature beginning to drop there. So we're seeing those reports from a lot of folks. Some more people in Posey County, Poseyville. Jeanette says just had rain and strong winds about 20 minutes ago. No thunder or lightning, but very windy and some rain. But now it seems to have moved through and they're starting to see their temperatures drop in many of those locations. Good afternoon, Suzanne, Danielle, Joan, Lori. Yeah, Jeanette says it's now 48 in Poseyville. So, wow. I mean, it is dropping like a rock. Yes.
Quickly.
And Kelly's asking about Sunday. She's asking, okay, so she's saying this front's moving through. For those of us in Illinois and in, Poseyville and places like that where these storms have kind of already rolled through, we're done with today. Let's look ahead to this weekend.
Right.
She's asking, do you think there's any chance we could see severe on Sunday?
Well, I mean, at least looking at things a little bit far ahead, it's too early to be for certain. But of course, when you have that strong of a temperature difference, there's always going to be that potential for, at the very least, some thunderstorms that could be strong to severe. But at this point, the predictability for that is way too low to go ahead and issue any kind of official alert day for it. But we are going to be keeping an eye on it here over the next couple of days. So just stay tuned to the forecast. At this point in time, it doesn't look like it would be a widespread thing, similar to maybe today with that cold front moving through. Could see some damaging wind gusts possibly, especially if it's going to be on the windier side with all the winds cooling us down into the upper 20s. So that'll definitely be something we'll be watching here go through the next couple of days. So stay tuned.
Yeah, like you said, it does seem like it'll be a pretty strong cold front. That's a big drop in your temperatures. I wouldn't be surprised if we got some severe weather Sunday, something we're monitoring closely, but there's still a lot of uncertainty. I think someone will probably get severe weather on Sunday.
Right.
But will it be in the tri-state is a little uncertain. Some models are indicating a better chance to our east, others showing a better chance to our south. So where exactly there would be that potential for severe weather, still a little iffy there. All right, thank you, Sabrina, Phyllis. Emily does have a question. She said, is Evansville okay? Is Evansville in the clear? And the answer is not quite yet.
Yes.
We still have some storms moving through. I'm going to take us back up to the radar real quick, just so we can take a look here. So this is where the storms are moving through right now, and these are moving from west to east. So, we've had some reports in Posey County where this line of storms kind of just moved through there. There's still a little more rain still in southern Illinois. So until all of this kind of pushes to the east, we're not completely in the clear just yet, especially right along that front, which hasn't actually passed through Evansville just yet. Our winds are still coming from the south in Evansville, whereas other places are already seeing that pivot and that wind change to the north. Until we see that shift in our winds, until the cold front actually passes through Evansville, there's still that potential for an isolated, stronger wind gust that could maybe even be damaging. That would be the main threat at this point. Like we said, wouldn't rule out a little hail or maybe even a brief spin-up tornado, but really at this point the focus seems to be it's already so windy, and as that cold front is passing through, right on the front edge of that cold front is where we could see some wind gusts strong enough that they could do some minor damage. We had some reports just a second ago from Hobstadt, as I'm guessing as this line of storms was moving through, because that would be up to the north here, that as that was moving through, they had a wind gust that damaged some siding and some shingles and turned over some lawn furniture, things like that. So we're still on alert for that possibility here in Evansville over the next hour or two, but I'd say probably by about 5 o'clock, any risk of severe weather will be winding down across the tri-state.
Yeah, we'll still have some of those lingering showers here through the evening, but I think past 5 o'clock, once that front completely clears, we'll be okay by then.
Yeah. All right, we had somebody asking, can we have one more look at the radar? Ask and you shall receive. There it is. And Jennifer says it's very windy in Chandler and starting to sprinkle. So yeah, we're seeing just, again, kind of scattered rain. We're not seeing a lot of lightning. We do have one bolt of lightning in Pope County, Illinois, just outside of the tri-state, but really this is not a lot of lightning. Even the rain at times is fairly light. It's really the wind that we're concerned about at this point. It's very windy, and as that cold front's rolling through, it could get even windier, possibly windy enough to do some minor damage. So be on the lookout for, especially if you have a weak tree, things like that. You could have down tree limbs and
the soil
issues.
Is pretty waterlogged at this point, so it won't take a lot.
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain the past few days.
A weak tree that's already not doing too well in the waterlogged soil that could topple over pretty quickly, or those loose branches just from all of the rain this week. Could easily maybe topple over, even with sub-severe wind gusts. So
yes, so some minor wind damage, certainly not to be ruled out as we go through the rest of this afternoon. But it does seem like the major risk of any kind of severe weather has, for the most part, already passed. So at this point, it would be very isolated and primarily a damaging wind threat. And yes, other people saying they've had a lawn chair blown over out in the yard, things like that. So again, most of this is fairly minor damage, but still, just be on the lookout. And especially if you're in a car, especially something like a high-profile vehicle, like a semi-truck or something like that, those things get blown around in the wind very easily, can get tipped over. So just use extra caution in those scenarios. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. Again, let's take one more look at your 7-day forecast. These storms and these gusty winds are all going to move through here over the next couple of hours. Again, our severe weather threat is isolated, but a damaging wind gust certainly still possible as this cold front moves through. Then tomorrow, sunny, not as windy, but about 20-25 degrees colder than today. Friday, Saturday, pretty quiet. Partly cloudy, lower 60s.
Very nice.
Sunday then is when things could maybe get interesting. We warm up to about 70 Sunday, but that's when we've got that cold front.
Right.
And it's going to pack a punch.
Yeah, it drops us from the 70s or upper 60s to right around 70s Sunday afternoon, down into the upper 20s by Sunday night into Monday morning. Then we hang out in the 30s only for the start of the work week before we gradually warm back up into the 40s and 50s by the middle of next week.
All right. And looks like, let's see, some people are just concerned about school pickup and things like that. Again, our severe weather threat today is very isolated. I want to emphasize that. It's really just, it's going to be windy out there, and as that cold front moves through, it's going to get even windier. So that's the main concern at this point, but you should be fine to go out and pick your kids up. And so I'm not seeing, some people are saying there may have also been a tree knocked down in Chandler. So some reports of very high winds out that way. So just be careful, watch out for things like that on the roads. But I think we're all going to get through this just fine. All right. If that's it, then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up.
All righty.
And Jeff Lyons is he's in there prepping right now. He'll have your forecast on 14 News tonight at 4, 5, and 6, and then you take over later.
Yes, I'll be back here again at 9 o'clock tonight for our streaming show, and then I'll be on air at 10 with the latest forecast and, of course, with the news. So
and by then, we'll have a big drop in our temperatures.
Yeah.
So tune back in to see just how cold it has
it's gonna
gotten
be
by
by
10
this
o'clock
point,
tonight.
in a few more hours.
Yeah.
So that'll be exciting, something fun we like to watch on the weather show. So we'll see you there. But until then, everybody, have a great rest of your afternoon and stay safe.